Hello everybody, this is Booty Bopper here for a tier list. I haven't done one of these in a while, so I figured I might as well come and do one for Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light, which just recently released over a week ago for the Switch worldwide. And for many people, this is their first time playing the game, so having refreshed myself on it through my recent playthrough that I've been live streaming, I've decided I'd come in here and throw up a quick tier list for the game. I have beaten the game twice before for some reason, and so this is my third playthrough, and I just want to give my thoughts on these characters. Now, the rules for this tier list are going to be pretty simple. It's going to assume some faster play, getting through the game more quickly, because generally the quicker you can beat something, the better a character is. So that applies for just about any game, really. But for the most part, this is going to serve as a sort of guide type video, where these characters are going to be put in order by how easy they make the game. If they make the game easier, they're going to be put really high. If they make the game harder, they're going to be put pretty low. Now, there is some disagreement as to whether or not this is a good way to frame a tier list. I think there generally is not a mismatch most of the time between efficient play, playing a little quicker, being a little more proactive, and making the game easier. Because generally, in most games in the series, if you play a little faster, not like uber fast, not LTC fast, but like you're kind of, you're utilizing your movement a lot more, the game is going to be easier because you're just going to get more things done more quickly, and you're going to have less time out there to get murdered. So that's going to be the rule set we're coming from, and we're going to be looking at the characters in recruitment order, so beginning of the game to the end of the game. This is not the Shadow Dragon and Blade of Light portraits. These are the official artwork that we are going to be using. So without any more explanation, let's go ahead and dive right in. And also, I'd like to preemptively apologize. It's really bad allergy season here where I live for like the next 2 months. So if I sound a little nasally or a little hoarse at some points, that's why. It's something I just got to get used to and work through, because I'm going to be having mad allergies for like the next forever. So let's go ahead and get started. So first we got Marth. Marth is the lord of this game, and he is ridiculously good. Maybe the best lord in this franchise. That might be a tall order, but he does a lot of things that are really, really good. Now, a lot of people might dock him points because he has to seize, he has to visit all the villages, and that means he's pretty limited on where you want him to go. And generally in this game, there aren't a whole lot of side objectives. Most villages are on the way. There are a few that are out of the way, but most villages are on the way, except for ones like, the Bantu village and the Firestone village. But for the most part, villages occur naturally going through the level. And I actually am of the opinion that Marth should get credit for his utility for the stuff he gets from the villages, because I consider it no different than thief utility. If you're playing Sacred Stones, Colm gets credit for stealing the energy ring in Chapter 6. I think Marth should get credit for getting the items in the villages, because that is unique utility that only he can do. That's something that only he provides, and it gets you a ton of money. It gets you some pretty good items, but mostly just a shitload of money. That's really nice to have. So he gets all that. Very similar to Ike in Path of Radiance, he's also pretty necessary for the final boss of this game. Generally, how a character performs against the final boss isn't too big of a factor in their rating, but Marth, just like Ike in Path of Radiance, is kind of unique because he's more or less required to take on Medea at the end of this game, and he can absolutely trounce that guy, so I think that counts for quite a bit. And like Ike in Path of Radiance as well, the last 4 or so chapters of this game, Marth is just tearing people apart with the Falchion. For like the final 8 chapters of the game, he has the Mercurius, which does not boost his growth rates, but it gives him a chance to gain 2 stats when he levels a stat up. So instead of like 1 skill, he'd get 2 skill. And it's also just a really strong weapon in general that he has exclusive access to, both that and the Falchion. And even during the early game, when you'd expect him to be a little weaker, he really stands on his own. The rapier is a really good weapon in this game, and it's viable. It deals effective damage against most enemies, and enemies are weak enough to where they are going to be one-rounded by Marth during most of the game. Once you start getting into Chapter 4, where almost every enemy is going to be a Paladin, Cavalier, General, Armor Knight. And then his speed is so good that he's going to double everybody else. Going to double Archers, going to double, might not double Pegasus Knights. But generally swords are so light that he's going to get there pretty quickly. His base speed is pretty good at 7. And the growth rate of 50 means he's going to get there. He's going to get to doubling thresholds very quickly. And swords are such a good weapon type that he's never going to get weighed down. He also has pretty good move. Best unit to give the boots to. Definitely. Quite a good unit. I think he's an easy S tier. Which comes off like a meme because lords never get that high. But I think village utility, plus how good the rapier is, plus how good his late game is. His late game really is on another level from most people. And then if you want to do warp skips, if you want to warp skip the second half of the game, he's one of the best characters to do that with because he's generally going to be pretty dodgy. He's going to deal effective damage against most bosses. You can just warp him in there, and he's going to be pretty safe. He can kill a boss, and you can physic him up. And both warp and physic have infinite range in this game, so you can do that. And he's going to be, pretty good at it. His weapon level is also 5 in this game. His growth in that stat is actually pretty low at 30%. For sword users, you want to hit 8. 8 is sort of the benchmark that you want for weapon level because it lets you use the Levin sword. But by the time Levin swords are buyable and pretty common, he's very likely to hit that because Marth just gets a ton of levels. He becomes very self-sufficient very quickly. Really, really good unit. Now, 2 other really good units are Cain and Abel. They're going to get paired together a lot because, frankly, I had to study up before starting this video to see which one was which because I always mix them up. I always mix these guys up for some reason. I don't know why. Their portraits in FE1 are very funny, but I can never keep who's who straight in my head. But generally, their kind of big differences from each other is that Cain is stronger and Abel is faster, but the point differences there aren't very much. There isn't a whole lot that really divides them. I think generally you'd rather have more speed, so at base, Abel is slightly better. I think that's going to give him the edge. Abel also has a higher weapon level than Cain at 6 instead of 5, so it lets him use a couple more weapons that Cain cannot, but generally their weapon level growths are really good, although Abel's is also higher there, but only by 10%. Cain is going to be able to use all the weapons that you want. If you use them long term, they're going to get to the point where they can use Silver Sword, or they can use Levin Sword, they can use the Gradivus, or the Gradivu, as I like to say, to trigger people when I stream. But generally very, very good, although Abel is slightly better because he has better bases, where he has bases that you like a little more, at least I like a little more, because he's faster and higher weapon level. But they're also in a really good class. Generally in FE1, there's not a whole lot of things that differentiate units. And that's something you'll see throughout this list, because a lot of things that are traditionally that differentiate units throughout the series later on are not present here. So you've got like things like stealing is not a thing here, dancing is not a thing here, rescue utility, a lot of different staff utility that we're used to later in the series is just not here. And then like weapon ranks are, since it's just folded into one stat, it makes units less unique. So it's not like the, in Shadow Dragon, there's a bigger difference between these two because one of them is closer to Rider's Bane and one of them can use javelins at base, which I think is Abel or it's Cain. It's one of them. I don't remember. I always forget. Like I said, I always mix them up, but like that difference is much more significant, there. So it can be difficult to differentiate units, but really Abel is better, but they're both really, really good and they have perfect availability, both coming in Chapter 1 with Marth. You can make an argument to them for S tier, but I think the fact that you do have to rely on their growth a little bit to get them up to where they can use like Silver Sword and stuff is a little iffy. I'm pretty pessimistic on growths when I rank characters generally. So keep that in mind a little bit going forward, but these guys are really, really good. But they don't bring anything super unique to the table like Marth does with his village utility. And then like the Falchion and Mercurius. So still excellent. Jagen is weird. His base stats are terrible and his growths are terrible. Now, his growths being bad is sort of a trap, sort of a trick of the light. I talked about this in my Jagen video. And one of the things is that Jagen's like growth rates, it's like 0% luck. And who cares? Luck is at its worst in this game. Luck does not give crit avoid in this game, so like it literally doesn't matter to have 0 luck and like a base luck of 1. His 0% growth in weapon level doesn't matter because his weapon level is already good enough to where he can use Silver Lance, he can use the Silver Sword at base because his weapon level is 10, so he can use Silver Sword, you can use Levin Sword. He's got everything that you want, and he's also a paladin. He has 10 move right from the get-go. Now that's big in this game because promotion in this game is very rare. It's hard to come by. Promotion items are pretty rare. Like, there's only one Orion's Bolt in the game. There's like Dragon Whips are really rare, or Legion Whips are quite rare. So the fact that Jagen just gets to be a paladin is big, and again, his bad growths don't really matter too much because like 0% resistance doesn't matter because nobody has a resistance growth and nobody has a resistance base in this game except for Gato. So one of the best units in the game. It's hard to put him better than Marth. He has a better early game than Marth, but Marth absolutely demolishes the late game for basically every playthrough, just because he's handed so many powerful tools. But Jagen is ridiculously good, and I'd like to say he's one of the best units in this game to give stat boosters to. He makes great advantage of them, which is weird to say. But if you give him like the speed ring or the speed wings or something, he's gonna double everything. Speed wings are ridiculous. Give like +6 speed. He's one of the 2 best characters in the game to give that to. And generally, stat caps are so low in this game. Every stat except HP caps at 20. So giving him that, most other characters are going to reach doubling thresholds pretty easily. Jagen won't. So you can argue that he needs like an extra stat booster to be more relevant. But because he gets to be a paladin so early, and you're not going to you get some Night Crests in the game, in the mid game, but he's going to get to take much more advantage of those stat boosters than, say, Kain or Abel, because Kain and Abel are going to be stuck at 8 move when Jagen's got 10, which makes him so much more versatile. And you got Gordon, ultimate meme from this game, because this is the Gordon that became like 5 points, and Doga, did you see that shot, and all that. And he's absolutely terrible in this game. Completely worthless, more or less. I don't know if he's actually an F tier unit. I might leave him here for memes right now, but bows are at I don't know if bows are at their worst in the series in this game, but it's definitely close to it. Because bows are locked to 2 range, as they always are. Generally very low movement for bow users, or at least footlocked archers and snipers and hunters. Not going to get to take advantage of high movement or of horses, which is what you really want in this game, because maps are huge. So Gordon is just going to fall behind on turn 1 on most maps. I'm actually going to put him in D tier because he does have perfect availability. He is around early on in the game. Chapters 1 and 2, he is going to contribute. Beyond that, he's not going to get to do much because maps become so much bigger and enemies tend to start very far away from your starting position. So Chapter 1 and 2 are pretty unique and 2 of the best places to be an archer. So he gets a lot of points for that, but really beyond that, not a whole lot this guy can do. And bows being bad is a running theme you're going to see throughout this video. And the big thing, too, about Gordon is that he has... Let me look at the list here on his weapon level. He can... Weapon level 5, 50% growth. So, like, if you really invest in him, he's going to get to the point where he can use, like, the Parthia later in the game. But there's other characters that are better at doing that. Anyway, and it's not like, again, bows are particularly good. They're trash, so not all that good. Then you got Draug, or Doga, depending on which translation you prefer. It's Draug in the English version, and locked to very low move as an armor knight. Pretty slow, but he's the chunkiest boy you have really for a long time at 11 base defense. Now, this might look weird putting him up in C tier because of the things I just complained about Gordon. Just the bows are bad. Now, Doga has a couple things over Gordon that I think push him to another level. For one, he has swords and lances, which is much better than just being bow locked. Swords are the best weapon type in the game. Doga's got them, so he can actually hit things, and he's so chunky that he's not going to die to anything, really. Like, things are not going to kill him. In fact, there's a lot of instances as early as, like, Chapter 4. I've seen it as early as Chapter 2 playing this game. Enemies just won't attack him because his defense is so high. And because AI is weird in this game, in, like, Chapter 2 or Chapter 4, where you have, like, units that are coming at you from behind, you have enemies coming at you from behind, they will glomp around units, even if they won't attack them. So they will just surround Doga and just sort of stand there, which is really useful for Chapter 4, where you have a big group coming at you from behind. So Doga can just basically take them out of the equation entirely. And then there are some chapters later on that if you're playing pretty slow, he can do that for you as well. I think Chapter 8? I start to get the chapters mixed up. It's the chapter with Maria and where you had to recruit Minerva. Might be Chapter 9. There's a big group of reinforcements that come from behind there. And on a first playthrough, you might encounter those reinforcements because it's going to take a long time to get to Maria. And it's going to take a long time to get to Minerva if you're not, like, using the warp staff and, like, kind of jumping around a little bit. So he can be quite good there, although I don't think he's the best for that specific utility in that chapter. But he can also chew up the wyverns that are coming at you in that chapter in the Pegasus Knights, which is quite nice. Then you got Ceta. Ceta is hard to not be biased towards because her Shadow Dragon version is ridiculously good, one of the most powerful units in that game, maybe the best unit in that game. And it's all because of her personal weapon in that game, the Wing Spear, where she just one-shots bosses if you forge it. She doesn't get any such utility in this game. She doesn't have a Wing Spear equivalent. And this is maybe the game where being a flyer is the least useful because while there is a whole lot of terrain to fly around, Marth still has to get to the throne every single chapter, and he's only going to be able to do that by his own movement or by a warp. So, like, there's no rescue utility or anything like that you can use. And Ceta has a lot of stat problems. Her speed is ridiculously good. She's going to cap it very quickly. She has a 90% growth in it and a really high base, so she's going to cap it. But her strength is super low, a base strength of 3 with a 20% growth, and she only has a 50% HP growth and only a 20% defense growth. And if we're playing pessimistically here, she's not going to grow in bulk. She's not going to go in strength. I've seen her, this is anecdotal, but I've seen her take more damage from a javelin than she dealt with a silver lance before in, like, a single round of combat, which is really, really bad. But flying still has its benefits. You can do weird things to the AI. You can force them to go in certain directions if you want them to, so she can play distraction games. Not as useful in this game as it is in Shadow Dragon, but that is still a use, although that is pretty niche. And being a flyer, also, just the ability to go over terrain, you can position her wherever, and that is really, really nice to be able to do. And her weapon level is 7, so she can use Silver Lance right at base. She only has to gain 1 stat of weapon level, which she's likely to do. Her growth is 80% in that stat, so she gets 1 more stat, and she can whip out the Levin Sword, which is ridiculously good for her, because as a flyer, she can go wherever she wants. She can sort of poke enemies with it, and because the Levin Sword does fixed damage at range, her strength doesn't matter. She's just going to do 14 damage. 7 times 2, she's going to do 14 damage every round of combat, which is excellent. It's really good to be able to do that as a flyer. But she doesn't have a whole lot of places that she can go. Now, she does have one advantage, and that's that the Wyvern Lord that she would promote into has a really high strength base. And the way promotion works in this game is that you get brought up to class bases, just like in Shadows of Valentia or Three Houses. So you promote her, she's going to be sick. She's going to get a big boost to probably like plus 4 or 5 strength, depending on how much you grew. That promotion doesn't come until pretty late, though, unfortunately. So I still say ridiculously good, because being able to fly around and avoid terrain is still really nice, and perfect availability and all that, and using Silver Lance at base is really good. And getting a Silver Sword is going to be really good. And her speed is really good. You like to double things. You like to be pretty dodgy in this game. It's a big enemy phase type game. Her bulk sucks, but she's around. Say A tier for right now. And then Riss is an F tier, one of the worst characters in the game. So, healing in this game, Riss actually got an upgrade in Mystery of the Emblem when he got replaced with the Vulnerary, because the Vulnerary is more useful than Riss will ever be. This game is so large, maps are so big, that your mounted guys and girls are going to be running around going berserk with like Levin swords and javelins and silver swords, going crazy, and Marth's going to be rapiering everything. There's just no space for a 5-move healer who is just never going to be around anybody to heal. The big problem for Riss is his weapon level is only 3. It lets him use heal, mend, and recover at base, which is pretty good. Until you realize that the only way healers level up is by surviving rounds of combat. Now, they get kill experience for it. It'd be as if they killed the enemy. But that's the only way to level him up. And his weapon level growth is 20%. He's never, ever going to get where you want him to go unless you give him the manual, which I guess is something you can do if in a pinch you need somebody who can use Physic and Warp. But generally, the two best staves in the game that anybody can use are Warp and Physic, which are weapon levels 6 and 7. So 7 for Physic, that's the benchmark you want to be. You want to be weapon level 7 if you're a staff user. Riss will never, ever get there. He'll never even get to 6 to Warp. And just healing 10 points at a time is basically worthless most of the time because he's never going to be around anybody. With Physic, where you have infinite range, your movement doesn't matter so much. But because enemies are generally really weak, player characters are generally really strong, and they move really far, Riss just never, ever does anything. It's pretty reliable to only heal with this guy maybe once before he hits the bench. Just not very good at all. Just never does anything for you. He's a lot better in the DS games, where at the higher difficulty levels you really need that healing. You know, on Jagen and Barst and Augma and whatever, but here he just does nothing at all. So next you've got a few units that can be pretty hard to differentiate from each other for a lot of people. Board and Cord. I had to look up which one was which before, because they have the exact same portrait in game, and they have like their stats are actually pretty different from each other. The big thing is that Board is going to be better because he's going to have a higher weapon level. He has a weapon level of 5 to Cord's 3, and that's really the big difference. Cord is a little faster at 9, and at 9 speed, doubling is really good, but axes are heavy. They're going to weigh him down. They're going to both of them are going to struggle to double most of the time, but Board is going to hit harder, and he's going to be able to use more weapons. He has an extra point of strength, and he has 2 extra weapon levels, so he's gonna get to do a bigger variety of things. I think that lets him use Hammer at base. Hammer is pretty good in this game early on because a lot of the bosses are weak to it, and the fact that Board can use it but Cord can't really, really sucks. And these are the first characters we get that can never promote in the game. None of the Axe Bros in this game can promote. There's a lot of classes that can't promote, fighters and pirates among them. So really the weight these guys are going to pull is going to be their early game free utility. And axes are just the worst weapon type in the game. They don't hit anything. There's no, like, you can't stack hit. There's no supports or anything like that they can easily take advantage of. So they're just really going to struggle to do much for you. But Board is definitely better. Board, early Hammer, hits pretty hard. And then Cord is, like, better than Gordon, but because he doesn't have a whole lot of weapons that he can really use, that hurts him quite a bit, I think. And it's worth noting that while Cord's weapon level growth is quite a bit better, I'd rather have the early Hammer, because there's no legendary axe. There's no big axe threshold you're going to meet. There's no, like, silver axe or anything that you want to get to. The unironic best axe in the game, the Devil Axe, is weapon level 1, so, you know, anybody can use it, so the Hammer makes all the difference. Now, a guy that's usually really good that everybody really loves is your boy Barst. He's the only one that, like, looks different, so everybody, you know, kind of knows he's good. This dude is hella fine. Good weapon level. Same as Board's weapon level. However, he is quite a bit stronger. He has 2 extra points of strength, and he is 2 points of speed faster. He has the same speed as Cord, so he combines really the best of Board and Cord, and just doubles down on. He's got Board's weapon level, got better strength than Board, and he's got the same speed as Cord. Quite a bit better. He's not a long-term guy, because again, he can't promote. Although not promoting is not the worst thing ever, but being stuck to axes is kind of the worst thing you could be, other than like stuck to bows or something, early on. So pretty good. Does some stuff, can use the hammer better than Cord can. So better than Doga, I would say, or Draug. But really not a whole lot there for him. Now Augma, really good. He is footlocked, unfortunately, but he's the best early promotion you can do. You get a hero crest pretty early on in the game. I highly recommend you use it on Augma. Don't get him killed in the arena like I did. He comes at you really fast with 12 base speed. He's gonna double everything, and with, you know, okay base strength of 6, but he's gonna double, and he's gonna pretty quickly get to the point where he can use Silver Sword and Levin Sword, weapon level of 6. He's gonna get up there pretty quickly, but you do have to rely on that a little bit. You gotta rely on that growth to get to that weapon level threshold that you want to get that bulk up. But doubling things is just really nice. He's not a terrific unit, but compared to like the Axe Bros, you really like to have him because he actually hits things. Axes have canonically never made contact with an enemy in FE1, so being able to hit things is just really good. Now, speaking of hitting things, we got Darrow's, who has a skill growth of 0 and like a base of 1 or something. It's something really, really bad. Like just absolutely pathetic. Let me actually see what his base skill is. His base skill is 2 and his growth is 0. He's never going to hit anything. And the best thing he's got going for him is that he can use hammer at base. And he's pretty fast at 7 speed. But that's actually not fast at all, now that I say it out loud, because he gets weighed down by axes, so like kind of trash. Kind of really bad. Use the hammer, better than Cord. And he's actually Pyros. We'll put him up here for a minute, because he set sail on the ocean blue, and that's pretty cool. You know, life of a sea dog and all that. And we got Castor. Now Castor is basically Gordon, but better. He's basically the same unit. He's a little stronger early on. He can't promote because he's a hunter, and only archers can promote in this game. But I'd rather have the good bases. He loses 1 chapter of utility compared to Gordon, but I think if you're going to use one of them more, and you're going to have the spaces, you're going to have the deployment spaces to use them more, Castor's the better pick for like the first 5 or 6 chapters while he can like come along. I actually like the accuracy of bows so much that I'm going to put him above Cord, so I might even put him above Darrow's, even though that kind of hurts a little bit. But, you know, he's stronger. And I like the strength. I really like that he's strong. It's not too big of a difference. He's got, I think it's about 2 points of strength on Gordon. But I think that makes a nice difference. And at a higher weapon level, if you want him to go Parthia, you can do that a little easier. I actually don't know what his growth is in that stat, because nobody's ever used Castor a single time. His weapon level growth is actually 20, so scratch that. You're not going to get anywhere, but also Parthia sucks because it's a bow, so who cares? And we got Julian. A thief utility in this game is sort of wonky. They can open doors with the master key. Pretty much only they can do that. Only the 2 thieves in the game can use the master key. And they can open chests without keys. That's pretty good, but Marth is something I didn't mention above with Marth. Marth gets the Fire Emblem, which lets him open chests. So Marth essentially gets thief utility minus doors. Doors and bridges are pretty nice to be able to open up as thieves, but you generally get enough door keys to handle it, and door keys are buyable in this game. So the one piece of unique utility that thieves get is just completely useless, and the combat is just not there. Now, Julian's around pretty early. So he's going to do some stuff, and he's going to have... both thieves are going to have a chapter where they can pick some chests before Marth gets the Fire Emblem. And that's pretty good for Julian. And if you need Julian to fight in a pinch, he can do it definitely better than, the other thief, which we'll get to. But this game not having a whole lot of thief utility really sucks. Now, one funny thing for Julian, and this is going to come up for Rickard, the other thief as well, is that his weapon level growth is 0. Both Julian and, as we'll see with Rickard later, have a base weapon level of 2 and a weapon level growth of 0, so they can never, ever get anywhere. They can only use Iron Sword and then, funnily enough, the Devil's Sword. And that just sucks. So their combat is pretty locked unless you give them the manual, which you really shouldn't do, because giving them the manual... Actually, giving them the manual, I think that's... If it's plus 6, I actually have to check. It might get them up to 11 Sword, but it's not going to get them up to Silver Sword, and that's what you want. If you're a sword, you want 11 Sword and you want Silver Sword. And they can never get that under any circumstance. Because I think there's only one manual in the game. And even if there's more than one, would you really want to give them 2? When you could give, say, the manual to Jagen to let him use the Gradivis? It's not worth it. Then we got Lena. Lena is way better here than she is in Shadow Dragon. Unless you're like LTCing Shadow Dragon, Lena's warp utility there in that game is not all that exclusive. There are chapters in Shadow Dragon where you want Lena to be warping early before you have 2 warpers, like chapters 4 and I think chapter 7. If you're like LTCing those games, but generally if you're just doing a casual playthrough, Lena's exclusive access to warp is not all that big of a deal, because Riss is going to get there in a casual playthrough pretty quickly, and then you're going to get guys like Wendell or reclass Jagen are going to be able to do it as well. But here in this game, it's pretty exclusive. Not many characters can warp. Certainly not at base. And Lena has the staff rank to warp, and she has the staff rank to use physic at base, so she never has to level up for anything. She also has exclusive access to the Hamern staff in this game, which has 12 uses. So you can Hamern legendary weapons, you can Hamern, warp staves. You can do a lot of different things with Hamern, and only she can use it, which makes her really, really, really good. I don't put her above Marth, because at the end of the day, you still got to kill the enemy. Warp is just a means to deliver that kill. The killing still has to be done, though. But Lena is ridiculously good. And unlike Riss, she can throw Physic. And Physic is super nice to have in this game because it has infinite range. It's basically the only reliable way you're going to heal people most of the time, because your healers just suck. But Lena's movement, thankfully, doesn't matter because of her weapon level. And then you got Navarre. Navarre's basically just kind of like, he's discount Augma. He's pretty good. He's not as good as Augma. He's got worse strength at base than Augma. But he's got the same defense. And I think he's the same speed. He's actually slower than Augma. He does have a better weapon level, though. At base, he can use Silver Sword. So he can use all the swords in the game at base. That's quite nice. That's really good. So you don't have to rely on his growths to get to that point, and he only has 1 less chapter of availability. So I think he's a little better than Augma, because he's going to get... Swords are so light where he's going to double everything anyway, and his weapon level is such that he never has to do anything to get anywhere. He's already there. You're going to want levels on him for bulk and strength and stuff, but... being able to pull out the Silver Sword, come off the bench, use the Silver Sword, use the 11 Sword if you need him to. One thing I really like about units in this series is units that can come off the bench, that have some utility, even if you haven't used them much. And Navarre can do that. Navarre gets it done. Still footlocked, which sucks, but hey, he's alright. Now, we get the Meme Lord himself, the most legendary character in the entire franchise, Mathis, and this is probably Mathis's best incarnation, which is both really sad, and also it's just really sad. It's just really sad because the bar is so low, so it's not impressive, and he's also just not that good here either. He does have more things going for him, though. His weapon level's 8, so he can use Levin Sword and he can use Silver Lance at base, and you love that. You love that, especially because he's in a really good class with Cavalier. So, he can move around, he can do a lot of things, but he's got problems. We're not going to pretend he doesn't have problems. Really low skill at 2, so you're going to be pretty inaccurate unless he's using a sword. Strength is pretty low at 5. 5 is just not a very good skill. That's Marth's base skill, but he's coming 3 chapters later. But again, the class is good. Class is good. The weapon level's really good. You like that. But also, like, you know, 6 speed. Not liking that very much. He's going to get in a B tier because of his class. He has long-term potential, and he also has short-term utility. I think all that really helps. But this is the best Mathis can ever do, is bottom of B tier. And then you got Merrick here. Merrick is like Chad Supreme. I'm just going to instantly put him right here above Ceta. Because Merrick... Magic is weird in this game. Nobody has resistance in this game, period, except Gato and a select few enemies. And it makes sense why. The only way you can ever raise resistance in this game is through a pure water or a barrier staff. And, you know, and again, that makes sense because, you know, even the mighty Draug, if you, like, shoot him with a fireball, you're just going to cook him like a Christmas ham in that armor. Like, there's no way for you to resist magic in any kind of sense that makes, you know, any type of sense. So Merrick gets to target that. Now, there's no way to augment the amount of damage you do. In this game, all tomes do a set amount of damage. But Merrick comes with the Excalibur tome, which is just ridiculously good. It's super accurate. It's super strong. Makes him one of the best boss killers, the best boss killer in the early game. There's a lot of nasty generals, and a lot of the bosses are locked to one range. They have really powerful one-range weapons, so you want to attack them from range, but it's really only Merrick that can do it, and Merrick gets pretty exclusive access to Excalibur, and that's just really nice. Now, it might be, you might say it's extreme to put him in A tier simply because he kills bosses super easy, but you're going to have to kill every boss, and you're probably not warping the early game. You're going to need somebody to do it. Most units are going to be in such extreme danger. That is the one enemy on every map that has to die, and Merrick does it better than anybody else. And then long term, if you're a big Merrick fan, his weapon level's 5. When he promotes, he gets stays. You can't do that until the late game, because I don't think you get your first, like, guiding ring until chapter 19. But once you get it, you pop it on him because he's going to be level 10. He can kill a mad amount of people. So pop him up there, physic, warp, do the things that you want him to do. Hop in late if you need him for some staff utility. He's going to get it done. So I really like him. Now, then we get the Wolf Guard and Harden. We're just going to breeze through these because nobody cares really at all. We'll start with Rocher and Violent, who are literal garbage. Like, they're so bad. Violent, who has the exact same portrait as Mathis in this game, which is really funny, is complete buns. He comes in with 4 weapon level, which sucks. 6 speed, which sucks. 7 defense is alright. It's almost as high as Jagen's. But, you know, he also only has 6 strength. So, like, or 5 strength, actually, is Violent. Like, just trash. He's in a good class. So you, in theory, you could do things with him. But his bases are really bad. And his growths are really bad. Only 30% strength. 70% weapon level is pretty nice. But 20% speed, 10% defense. Homeboy's going to be Garbo for, like, as long as you can imagine. I mean, the class is really good, but the weapon level sucks. Like, he might be F tier? I think he might be F tier. Because even though his class is really good, like, his movement given to him basically just means there's more ways for him to get killed. Because you can move him into all kinds of different spots for him to just get murdered. That is really sad. Really, really sad. I mean, maybe he's better than, like, Cord and Gordon, because Cord doesn't have the hammer. And in theory, you could get Violent up. I mean, if we're relying on theory here, like, Violent only has, like, 1 chapter. Cord at least has a couple chapters for utility. Screw Violent. He's bad. He's so bad. And Rocher's not much better at all. Rocher is a little stronger and a little faster and has a little more bulk. He's got more HP, so he's better. He's definitely better than... I would say Rocher is definitely, like, up here, probably. Because one of the big benefits, too, of Rocher is that his weapon level is 7. Actually, weapon level 7 is pretty good. When we're talking weapon level 7, you're talking Silver Lance. And if you're talking Silver Lance, you're talking my kind of language. I'm going to say he's actually probably up here. I think there's a pretty big gap between the two of them. Because Rocher, again, better bases. And his growths are also quite a bit better. He has 40% more skill growth. His speed growth is only 10. He's not going to get, any faster. But Silver Lance is a pretty good weapon. And he only needs to proc 1 weapon level, which he'll probably do at some point to get Levin Sword. So, hey. He's functional. I don't know if he's C tier functional. I feel like I just want to dunk on Violent a lot. It's probably more fair. I'll put Rocher like down here, and we'll leave it at that for right now. And then we got Wolf and we got Sedger. Now, again, these are two guys. Like, who knows the difference between these two guys? There is some difference, definitely in terms of their stats. But we'll talk Sedger first because he's right here first. So they're horsemen. Which is pretty interesting class. It's bow lock, so it doesn't have good weapon options, but it's also horse. So you get 9 move. And 9 move's pretty good. If you're going to have bows, you might as well have, pretty good movement to go with it. Sedger is the worst of the two because he has worse strength and worse speed and worse luck and worse skill and worse HP. So, not the best recipe to be worse in every single stat except for well, actually, he is the worst in every stat. He ties with him on defense. He's got also only a weapon level of 3, which doesn't cut it. You're not coming into Chapter 4. You're coming in here with worse weapon level than Gordon. Like, get out of here. Class is pretty good, but you don't need bows. 9 movement's quite nice. Probably puts him better than Julian, but he's worse than Rocher. Definitely. I like him better than, maybe Castor, because long-term, you like that movement. You like being able to pluck some people with bows for a hot minute, but he's just not nearly as good as Wolf. Like I said, Wolf is stronger, faster, has more options with this higher weapon level. And neither of them have particularly good growths. The funny thing is that Wolf's weapon level growth is quite a bit higher, and his luck growth is significantly better, and his strength growth is better. And they're pretty significant leads. It's like strength plus 20, weapon level plus 30, speed plus, luck plus 60. That's pretty good, even though luck sucks in this game. I mean, hey, you're not going to turn it down. You're not going to opt for a 10% growth over 70% growth. So, Wolf, quite a bit better. I'd probably put him up around here because I like the class more than I like Barst. So, pretty good. Then you got Harden. Harden is just a monster. It's really a question of, Harden is one of the best units in the game. Probably better than Cain and Abel. Because compared to them, here's what Harden has going for him, is that he's got 9 strength, and he's got 9 weapon levels. You can use all the weapons that you want him to use. He's got 8 defense, which is ridiculously good. He's got 8 speed, which is nice. These are all better than Cain and Abel. He has less time to be on the field than Cain and Abel. I'll actually probably, for that reason, bump him down a little bit below them. But this guy is really, really good. I highly recommend that you use Harden. This guy is silly. Too bad he turncoats in Mystery of the Emblem and you don't get him. Spoiler alert. But just so good here. So powerful. And again, if you can use the Silver Sword at base, it's a wrap, dude. You're going to be a beast. Now we got Wendell. Now Wendell here, this guy's interesting. Homeboy got some legs on him. He got the newest Yeezys on him. He's been wearing the new Nikes, and he's got 15 speed, which is just absurd. 15 speed or 14 speed, whatever it is. I think it's 14 speed, and then Boa has 15 speed later on in the game. But he's so fast, second highest speed base in the game. He's going to double everything. His weapon level is really, really high. He can use basically all the magical tomes that you want. And because he's a promoted bishop, he can use Warp and he can use Physic at base. No questions asked. You throw some heals, you throw some mends on people, throw some physics on people. Warp dudes around. He comes with the barrier staff. He can throw barriers on people so you can augment your resistance in the rare instances where you have to go up against mages. Really, really good unit. If you want to go with the double warp strategy at the end game where you warp, if you want to one-turn maps by warping in, Marth to seize and warping in somebody else to boss kill, he's your guy. You're going to need him for that. Not going to be as good as someone like Lena because, Lena has Hermern and more availability, but Wendell, really good top of A tier, maybe bottom of S tier. I don't think bottom of S tier because his combat utility is fairly limited. You'd like him to be in a better class where he can move around more, but he can do it all, and he does it all really well. Rickard, he ate my angelic robe in my stream playthrough, and I used a warp staff to get that. Rickard is trash. Worse growths, worse spaces than Julian. Same weapon level problem. He's around for less. Now he's in a chapter where he can pick up some items, but you got to get him out of a cage first. It's just a pain in the ass. I don't really count recruitment cost against somebody, but he's going to be further away from the chest, further away from the action. When he comes out, he's just never going to see any use. Probably worse than Violent. Rickard is really bad. Well, actually, no, he can use the Master Key. I like opening doors. He's basically, I'd put him there actually, because I've used Rickard long term in this game before as like my main thief, and it works out okay. He does some thievy things. Thieves again are not very useful, but I mean, hey, look, Violin's got a weapon level of 3, so you really can't compete. We got Bantu. Bantu is nice in this game. Bantu is a guy who's trash in the DS remakes, but in this game, pretty on point. I like what Bantu does in this game, which is just be mega chunky. He's Draug 2.0, but he does some more damage. Attacking with his Firestone. With his Firestone, he gets like plus 12 defense. He's not going to take any damage from basically anything unless you have a random Worm Slayer running around. And that's quite nice. It's weird seeing Bantu be good. He's not excellent. He's got no growths to speak of. Worst growths in the game, I would guess. I don't know. Maybe Gato has like zeros across the board. Gato probably still has better growths, even though he's capped. But Bantu, he's not going to go anywhere, but he's going to have this hot minute where he's pretty useful. He's going to do work for you. Now, because his utility is basically Draug's, but with, I think, does he have better move? I'm pretty sure he has better move because Draug has like 5 move at base. And then Bantu has got, actually, what does Bantu have? Because I think if it's 6. It's 6. That's what I thought. So, yeah, Bantu's going to be a little better than Draug long term because better movement. You can actually glitch Bantu if you try to shove a promotion item down his face. He will have like a weird glitch where he reacts to it and he'll like cap his defense, and it's really bizarre. So you can do that. You can break the game if you want with that glitch. But I mean, it's cheating, so I'm not going to count it for him. But hey, it's something you can do. You can do it with Tiki too, I'm pretty sure. So that's something. And then next we got Shija and Rad. So they come in, and the most that they're ever going to do in any run for anybody is like grind you up some cash in the arena there, or at least they're going to attempt to. Caesar got annihilated for me in the arena, but that's something that they can do. It counts for something, I suppose. Like, I don't want to go, like... One thing you'll notice throughout this game as you go further and further into this game, characters just do less and less as the game goes on. Because the idea behind this game, the design philosophy, is that later characters are replacements. They're meant to be serviceable, but not juggernauts. Your reward for keeping early game characters alive is that they become juggernauts. Late game characters are replacements. They're meant to merely be serviceable. That's what Rad and Caesar are. They are replacements for 'n' 'Var and 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 'n I'm a big Ashija fan as the next guy. You know, if we're gonna be making JoJo references all day, but you know they're pretty fast. Caesar's got some good bulk. He's better. If you need a guy in a pinch to come out, I'm liking Caesar's game a little more than I'm liking Rad's. Not really liking what Rad does. Stats are pretty butt cheeks. So he's pretty low on here. But they can promote pretty quickly. You get a hero crest pretty soon, although their level is bad. One thing that hurts Rad, his base level is lower. And there's no experience benefit to having a lower base level. All units just gain the same experience no matter what. So Caesar's base level of 3 is quite a bit nicer. You'd rather have it. And they're both still quite a ways off from using Levin Sword. They still need a couple points of weapon level, which, you know, you don't want to be a couple points away. Now, Rad has the higher weapon level growth, so maybe he has some longer term potential, but Caesar's going to do more for you in the moment because he's faster, he's stronger, he gets to promotion quicker, and you like to see it. He's also a little bulkier, the extra point of defense and some extra HP. So just generally quite a bit better, although I'd say because swords are better, I like Rad more than like these guys. I don't think I like them as much as I like Sedger. I like horse movement. I like 9 move. I don't like Roger. Roger's really funny. Roger's kind of useful a little bit in Shadow Dragon because high defensive units are really nice to have in weapon rank and everything. But he's in a class that can't promote, which isn't the worst deal ever, but he's got 5 base speed. His 13 base defense is really sick, but 5 move and 5 speed, not going to get it done. But he does have one weird thing that you like to see, and that's a weapon level of 9, so he can use Silver Sword at base. And anyone who can use Silver Sword at base is going to have some sort of utility that's not trash, but his class is so awful that it doesn't really make up for it. Because at this point, you probably have Ceta who can use Silver Sword. You're going to have, you know, Marth, probably not using it, but Marth's running around killing people. You got like Augma, you got other sword guys. He's basically Rad and Caesar, but with worse movement. Better weapon level, worse movement. I like the better movement better, honestly, because silver swords are pretty hard to come by early on, and silver lances are buyable at that point, but you'd rather them be on Harden or something. You want Harden. Harden's going to be killing everybody before Roger even thinks to show up. I like Gordon's early game utility better. I think. You know, maybe F tier for symmetry, honestly. Roger's really bad. Just has nothing that he can do without drastically slowing your pace down. Because for him to get in the action with the silver sword, you got to keep Harden from getting in the action with the silver sword. And why would you do that? Unless you're memeing. If you're memeing, then more power to you. But again, this is sort of more of a guide for who makes the game easier. Then you get George. George's biggest draw is that he has a weapon level of 10, so he can use all the bows in the game, except for Parthia. And he has a weapon level growth of 50, so he's gonna get to Parthia. And that's nice. And he's pre-promoted snipers. He got more move. And he's pretty strong. Gonna hit guys really hard. Gonna double enemies. You like to see it. 7 strength is not all that. But 12 speed's really good. So it's basically 7 times 2. And again, he can hit. He comes with a silver bow, which is basically going to be exclusive to him because Gordon's probably like dead somewhere. So, you know, one of the better archer bros, probably not as good as Wolf, because I like Wolf's, like what Wolf brings to the table with that horse. But Jordan, I'm going to put him above Bantu because a lot of Bantu shenanigans are pretty defensive in nature, where you're just stalling out enemies that are coming in from behind you, kind of like what Doga does early on. Whereas George, at least, like, you can proactively kill some guys. And then we got Maria. So Maria is a curate, and she has a weapon level of 8. So you know she's going to be good because weapon level of 8. She can barrier people, she can warp people, she can physic. That's what you want. She's probably round... because in a vacuum... there are definitely diminishing returns for units because there's only so many staves to go around, and Wendell and Lena have probably got it on lock, but if you need someone on her own, she's excellent. She's really good. And speaking of really good, there's not a whole lot to say other than Staff's good, Maria good. She's significantly worse than Lena because no Hammer, she's got no combat, she's worse than Wendell, but Warp and Physic cannot be understated. And then we got Minerva. Now, Minerva's interesting because she's the best unit in the game to use the speed wings on. Because you give her the speed wings, she's going to double everything. She's going to fly around. She has ridiculous bulk. She's pre-promoted Wyvern Knight. She's got pretty good HP compared to where most units are. 9 strength is really high, but her 14 defense is ridiculous. She has higher base defense than Roger, comes only like 1 chapter later, and flies with 10 move. That should not be legal to be that good. Now, again, there is, like Jagen, there is an issue with the idea of like, okay, you got to give her stat boosters to be good, but nobody else makes a better use of that speed wings anyway. So once you get it, give it to her, because it doesn't really change anything for anybody else. It might make some lower tier characters like double, but it'll make her 1 round. Because at base, she can use Silver Sword, Silver Lance, Levin Sword. You heard it a million times, but she can do it. And so she's going to double with those weapons? Get out of here. Enemies are dead. It's over. Probably worse than Wendell, because Wendell's around a little longer and can warp, but really, really good. Then we get, everybody's favorite, Linde, because waifu, she's cute in the later games. People like her, but she's not really very good. Her weapon level is fine at 7. If you promote her, she'll be able to do the staff things. But she's basically worse Merrick. She doesn't get Excalibur. She gets Aura. She's pretty good. But she's pretty slow at 7 speed for what you would like to have. Not that it matters very much. She's going to nuke enemies. But this is an enemy phase heavy game. And at this point in the game, you don't need like the mage boss bombing as much. It's still kind of useful, but you'd rather do it with Excalibur. Because, at this point, Merrick is going to be significantly bulkier. But she's not terrible in this game. Her biggest issue is going to be her 5 movement. Or her 6 movement, I should say. Because it's just, it's weak and she's got no bulk to speak of. So it's hard to throw her out there with only 3 defense and 20 HP. So she's not going to do a whole lot. But she's not terrible. She's not terrible. She's worse than Mathis. But, hey. You can aura bomb some people. Is aura bombing really worth it at this point in the game where she comes in? Probably not B tier worth it. George can 1-round people with the silver bow. So Linde, I'd probably put her there. And now we got Jake the Body Jake, who is maybe one of the 2 worst units in the game, if not the entire franchise. Jake is terrible in this game. I played this game after I had played Shadow Dragon, the DS remake, and I was expecting Jake to be a boss, because in that game, him and Beck, a character we'll talk about later, are OD good, son, because they've got 3 to 10 range, mobile ballistas, destroy everything. In this game, ballisticians are locked to 4 movement, which is not a shock, but they're locked to 2 range as well. So basically, they're archers with less movement. Now, ballistas are basically nukes. They destroy everything. They're super high might. Thunderbolt deletes other ballistas. You got a lot of options there. The problem is that you've got no options because 4 movement, you don't need that type of nuke in this game. Enemies are so weak that any enemy that you'd want to break out the 17 might ballista for has probably already long been killed by Harden or something, or been quadruple crit to death by killing edge Augma. There's no one's going to be around anymore. And any enemies that you need that type of might for, also, you can, you've got Merrick, or you got Linde, or you got Wendell, who have higher move, who can just break right through the enemy's defenses by attacking their resistance. So, there's not really any benefit to it, and they're so slow and clunky that they just never in the action. They're never in the action. And being a combat unit that's never in the action is a problem. That's a big problem. Not very good. Very bad for you. So, then we got... I don't even know which one is which, honestly. The Christmas Armor Knights, Dolphin Mcallen. So Dolphin Mcallen are really bad. I'll have to confirm which one is which. I'm pretty sure Dolph is green and Mcallen is red. I'm sure every Dolph fan is like triggered right now. Yeah, Dolph is the green one. So Dolph is better a little bit because he's got a higher weapon level, and he's faster. You know, he can use the Silver Lance, and hey, 7 speed. That's pretty good. Or 5 speed. I'm sorry, 5 speed. That's pretty good. That almost gets the job done. What about, he's gonna get fucking doubled by everything, dude. 12 defense is pretty nice, but again, like, you come out here, Minerva's flying around at 10 move. More defense than you. Doubling things, killing things. This guy's bad. This guy's terrible. He's worse than Roger. He's worse than Violent, honestly. He's worse than Riss, too. And then Mcallen, same story, just worse stats. And they got 5 move, and they got access to 11 sword. That's pretty good compared to what the body Jake brings, but complete ass cheeks. Just so bad. I wish they were good. I love to meme with these guys, but they're really terrible. And they're just never gonna get where, I mean, maybe they theoretically can do more than Riss, because Riss, again, heals like once, but Riss at least gets to be on the bench. These guys are, like, in jail, and, like, they gotta survive. I mean, nothing's gonna kill them, but, like, yeah, they're better than Riss, but, like, these guys just suck. And we got your boy Thomas. If it wasn't, thanks for Frost for making Thomas not the most forgettable character in the entire franchise. This dude, like, who cares? Thomas is, like, your sort of Archer, Gordon replacement. 7 strength. You know, 9 weapon level's really good. 5 speed sucks. He's not going to double anything. It's what you need. He's like, if you're going to be an Archer, you might as well be George and, like, nuke a guy. Or be like Wolf and Sedger and have some high move. And if I'm looking at, like, Sedger and I'm being like, at least be like this guy, you know you've got some problems. F tier. We got Boa. Boa's pretty nice, actually. Boa has availability issues, but I like what I see when you get Boa. Mega fast, 15 speed. Gonna magic nuke things, can use physic, can warp. That's the big deal. That's a pretty big deal. You love to see it. You know, probably around here, I'd say. I like Augma and Navarre's combat a little more. Pretty good. I'll probably slide Maria down here just for some more symmetrical tiering. But yeah, Boa. It's not bad. It's not bad. Wish he had more availability. Availability is really what kills him here. Pretty good. You got Medea. Medea has the same problem, like this whole garbage squad. These guys all come together, by the way. Thomas, Dolph, Mcallen, Boa, and Medea all come together, or Medea, and you know Medea has the advantage of being a promoted class, and she can use all the weapons that you want her to use. She can use 11 sword and silver sword and all that, you know, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. 9 defense is all right, especially because she's very mobile. So Paladin is just an excellent class to be in. She doesn't need a Night Crest to get there. And again, she can use basically anything. And I think, if I remember correctly, her growths they're okay. Yeah, she's got, you know, like 50% speed. That's pretty good. Her growths actually suck, but most growths in this game suck. But, you know, so I like her for the class that she's in. And the class is honestly, I mean, if you need someone coming off the bench, you can do a lot worse than Medea, honestly. And one person that actually does do quite a bit, one person that actually is quite a bit better than her, just for raw combat, is Astrum, who you need her to recruit. Astrum, pretty good pre-promoted hero. Comes in very fast, blazing fast at 14 speed. Which is really nice. 8 defense, 24 HP. He's pretty bulky, 10 weapon level. I mean, we've been through this all over again. Again, units can get pretty samey here. But I like what Astrum can do as a combat unit off the bench. I think I like him more than a lot of these units down here because he does have potential to be a mainstay if you're not warp skipping around. Because he can do a lot of work. And he's pretty good at it. Beck is not good. Ballistician, but worse availability than Jake. F tier, worst unit in the game, pretty easily. Maybe the worst unit in the entire franchise. perhaps. I'd say even worse. Sophia picks up a guiding ring, and like Wendy promotes and gets axes. What does Beck do? No one has ever seen Beck do anything. Terrible. And now we got like the first two White Wings, Palla and Katria. Now, between the two of them, Palla is significantly better. It's +6 defense, or +6 HP, +2 defense, +2 speed, +2 weapon level, and +2 skill, +2 strength on Katria. She's all around better, and she's only 2 levels from promotion. You're getting close to your first handful of Elysian whips, so you like it. I like what Palla does. I like what she brings. I don't like her late join time, but 7 strength on a flyer is not the worst thing in the world to have in this game. And with the weapon level of 12, she's really close to Gradivis. I'm sorry, Gradivu. She's really close. And that's quite nice to be there. And flying still has its uses, like I said with Ceta. So she's basically Ceta, but a little stronger, but quite a bit worse availability. I'd say probably better than Mathis. Whereas Katria is quite a bit further from promotion. She's 7 levels away from promotion instead of Palace 2. Her stats are all worse. The HP is a particular concern. Having 6 less HP sucks. And her weapon level, though, is still good enough to use Levin Sword, which is a big benefit to a flyer, and Silver Sword. And her speed is still really good at 12. Just okay. She's okay. I'd say worse than Astrom, but like better than like all these. Like, it's easier to make her go through the rest of the game, the second half of the game with Katria, than it is to make most of these guys do it, except maybe like Shija, but or I should say to contribute more. But you got to have work put into her, unlike Astrom. And you got Aaron. I love Aaron a lot. Mostly in FE3, where he's really, really good. Not in Book 1, he sucks, but in Book 2, where he's the Jagen of the game. Really sick. I love his DS remake design a lot. I always feel like they did this guy really dirty, but by giving him like no dialogue and no character other than I have cancer and I'm dying, which is like, oh god, like let him do something else. Let him go out in a blaze of glory. But he's the only character in the game whose recruitment is an opportunity cost, because you either get him or Samson, but I'm not going to count that against either him or Samson. He comes as a paladin, and obviously, as we've said before, you cannot go wrong being a paladin, just having 10 move for free. But his stats are not really good at all. But 10 defense, 11 speed, and 10 weapon level is not the worst ever. You can do worse. He's worse than Medea, definitely. I'd probably put him... I'd probably put him right here in the game. Right here, compared. Better than Castor. Definitely better than Rickard. Now, if you want to talk about a good unit that you can get, you got to go Samson. I always go Aaron because I'm biased, but like Samson is like the better pick if you need a unit really bad, because he's got 15 speed, which is ridiculously sick. He's got higher skill, higher strength than Aaron. The only thing he's missing out on is the +3 move that Aaron has, and like I think he's missing out on like a little bit of defense, like 1 or 2 defense, which, you know, you'd like to have that defense, but everything else is so much better. Particularly the speed, that Samson is like better Caesar, I'd say. He's like worse than Astrom. He comes in later than Astrom. Actually, I'd move him up a little closer to Astrom. He's still in C tier. I'd say right about there. That's the way I figure it. Then we got Zayn. Zayn is weird. Zayn is not a dancer, but he like replicates whatever unit you want. So he can become Harden, he can become Minerva. Just being able to become Minerva is like really good. In a casual setting, Zayn is really nice in this game, especially if you're playing with permadeath and you're not like rewinding the whole time. The ability to just become a nuke like Harden or Minerva is super nice, or to become another warper. if you need one, or another physic user if you need one, is just really, really good. It's a shame to not talk about Zayn very much, but literally mechanically, all he does is duplicate a unit, and that is just really, really good. He takes their stats, so that's why if you have him like with some few good items in his inventory, like a staff or, you know, like a really strong weapon, a silver sword or something, he's gonna do really fine. Which you love to see. Now a less good unit is Est, who has not the worst stats in the world, and she has like some of the probably the best growth rates in the game. Like it's like 70s across the board, except for like defense, which is 20, but everybody's defense growth sucks. Problem is she only has 8 base defense, which you'd rather have quite a bit higher. She's like never gonna really grow there. And you are relying on growth with Est. She spawned a whole archetype, but her big problem is that low strength. But she does have a really, really high weapon level, so it's much easier to get her up than I think a lot of Est. So a lot of Est in the series, like Nino or, you know, Ewan, they start with like E rank weapons, whereas Est starts with a weapon level of 11. And because getting experience and killing enemies is not that hard, it's actually quite easy to get Est up. The problem is that like promotion items are so hard to come by. Like, do you really want to be promoting her over Ceta or Palla? Probably not. You probably don't, because she's going to be worse than all of them for quite a while, particularly like Ceta and Palla. So like not the worst Est in the franchise, but I can't put her super high. I could put her mid tier. Worse than Samson. Better than George. Use Gradivu pretty early, so that's nice. And you got Tiki. Now, Tiki is a pretty good late game nuke to use. She deals effective damage against Manicheets, which is nice. There are a lot of Manicheets running around late game. Not a ton, but there's enough to where you like that utility. You like that she does that. I like that she does that. I like that she's, you know, Tiki and does a lot of damage and doesn't take very much damage because her Divine Stone gives her like plus 12 defense. So Tiki is like good, but like she's not going to do a whole lot. Her availability is so low. She's not going to stand out in any significant way, which sort of sucks. But again, going into those final chapters, it is very nice to have Tiki, a unit that deals a lot of damage and doesn't take very much damage. Probably bottom of B tier right here, I'd say. Has availabilities are a big problem, but she's quite good at combat. But she's only 6 move though, so probably down to here, I'd say. I like her better than what all these guys do, but I don't like as much as what these guys do. We got Lorenz. Lorenz is like serviceable. Every unit in this game basically, except for like these like 5 guys, are like usable to some extent, and Lorenz is like that. The problem with Lorenz is General's a shitty class. It's really cool looking. The shoulder pads are ridiculous. But like 5 move at that point in the game is like unbelievably bad. He can use Gradivis, which is nice, but again, trading items around in this game is such a pain in the ass. We haven't really talked about it, but like you're gonna have Gradivis on somebody, and it's probably not gonna be Lorenz. Lorenz, if you need somebody to use Gradivis, he can do it. And 34 HP is nothing to be scoffed at. It is by far the highest HP base of everybody in this game that isn't Gato. So you like to see that. But I mean, what the fuck is this guy gonna do? He's not gonna do shit. That's what he's gonna do. Speaking of not doing anything, you got Elise. And Elise is definitely like... Elise and Gato are going to be hard to rank because of like availability problems. The big thing for Elise is that she has exclusive access to the Om staff in this game. She can resurrect a unit for free. That's pretty good, especially heading into the final few chapters. She's only around for the last 2 chapters, I believe. So she's not going to have a whole lot of time to do anything, but she needs somebody to throw a warp, throw a physic. She's going to do that. She's obviously diminishing returns compared to everybody else that's already doing it. But the Om staff definitely brings her up a little bit into C tier, because resurrecting like one of these scrubs down here is like gotta have some value, I guess, because like, you know, you need Dolph and she can bring him back for you. Guy who's a little better is Gato. Gato is where the archetype comes from, the Gato archetype of like late game nuke that solves your problems. He's this game's Athos, and hey, that's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. I like killing dudes. with Gato in the final chapter. He only has 1 chapter availability, but his stats are basically capped across the board except for like defense and resistance, but he's the only character in the game that has a resistance base. That's kind of nice, but it doesn't really matter. It's just sort of funny. Makes sense that he has one. But he's got like capped speed and capped like skill. He's got 10 strength even though it doesn't do anything for him. So he's going to hit everything. Actually, his cap skill doesn't matter outside of giving him crit. That's pretty nice, but really the cap speed and the defense and the 38 HP is what you want. So he's not going to take any damage, or he's not going to take relatively a lot of damage compared to his HP, which is really good. 15 defense is also really chunky. That's as chunky as Lorenz, except with 6 move and the ability to use staves, he can actually like theoretically do things. And I really, really like that. He's better than Elise. I'd put him... it's so hard to rate characters like this. But probably right here. Now, that's about it for today. That's the whole thing. If you guys got any complaints, again, I'm an idiot. Just lay that out there. So, any problems with this, then let me know. And I'll make changes accordingly, more than likely, based off of what feedback looks like from this. This is just my initial thoughts. I guess not my initial thoughts. I've beaten the game a couple of times. This isn't an LTC tier list, again, to reiterate. This is mostly just like you're playing the game pretty quickly, but like not as fast as possible. And also just generally as a reference guide for who makes the game the easiest. So yeah, use these characters if you want to beat the game, and use these characters if you want to beat the game in a slower time, but you think it's funny. So, which I agree, Darrow's is fun to use, even though he's dead for me. Actually, just about everybody's dead for me, but fun tier list to make. I will see you all next time on the next tier list. See you guys then. Bye.